Awesome. We are recording. Welcome to PacWest Bigfoot. This is David. And all right, guys. So far, thank you so very much for tuning in and listening on in to some of these encounter stories and some of the awesome guests that we have. As a matter of fact, tonight is one of my favorites, and a gentleman that I've actually known for a while now. We've bantered back and forth. I think we've kind of spoken on and off now for probably right around a year almost. He's actually a friend of William Jevning's, also a friend of mine. His name is Thorfinn. That's what we will keep it at tonight. He is actually a forester out of the state of Washington. He's had multiple encounters. He's had a sighting as well. He knows a whole lot about this subject and about these creatures just from spending so much time in the profession that he is in within the state of Washington. And as we know, between Oregon and Washington and British Columbia and Northern California, I mean, these are some of the biggest hot spots in the world for this particular elusive apex predator, I believe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over, and tonight Thorfinn's going to actually talk about his very first sighting, the sighting that he's had, and he's also going to give us a real kind of, I guess you would say, creepy and scary kind of an encounter. And through this, he's going to kind of give us a little bit of information here and there of some of his observations of just how they are, their behaviors. And so, Thorfinn, go ahead. Take it away. I'm going to get myself comfy here, so go ahead, buddy.
Thanks. So I'll just start with this. I work as a forester on the west side of the Cascade Mountain. I live fairly close to the Canadian border. I'm about, I don't know, maybe 2 hours northeast of Seattle. I've been working here for about 7 years after I graduated from college. And during that time, multiple encounters in the woods, and I was always a believer of Sasquatch, but it wasn't until I started working in these woods, in these mountains, that I realized that it's not about whether you believe in this thing or not. It's about whether they exist, and they do in fact exist. And I've seen enough. I have a scientific background. I have a scientific mind, and these things exist. There's no doubt about it. There's no argument about it. Anybody that spends enough time in the woods will see that, realize it. And so I'll just get right to it. I'll just start with my first visual encounter, and then I'll talk about the other encounters I've had. As I stated to you, most of the encounters I've had or evidence I've seen, I didn't actually see the creature. I did have one visual sighting, and I'll just start with that. It was about 2 years ago, roughly. I was where I live. It's called the Stillaguamish Valley, and the town that I live in, it's a small logging town called Darrington, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
A long history of Sasquatch sightings and activity. The Native Americans that lived here before European colonization talk about these things. It's part of their culture, and it's a hot spot. The whole Cascade Mountain range, from Canada all the way to California, is a hot spot, all the way into Oregon. Mm-hmm. And so the first sighting I had was a couple years ago. It was very surprising to me because I wasn't out in the bush where I usually am in my comfort zone working. I wasn't out at night. It happened in a time and place that I didn't expect, and that's usually what happens with these things in my experience. I was actually driving. I was in my work truck, and I was driving through an area that I had worked in for years, and I saw a creature. It must have been about 8 a.m, and it was about this time, actually, around February. And I was just driving, and I saw something cross the road in front of me. And my first thought was that it was a bear. But what I saw, it moved so quickly, I couldn't believe how fast it moved across the road. It did not have a gait of a bear. And it was not a coyote, and it wasn't a cougar. And bears are in hibernation at this time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And bears don't have the kind of gait that I saw. What I saw, the best way to explain it is it looked like about a 7-foot basketball player running across a road on 4 legs. Like, it was running on all fours. It was in quad mode. And then it got up on 2 legs when it got to the other side of the road and took off into the woods. But it ran so fast, it ran faster than any coyote or cougar or bear I've ever seen. Bears run.
You know how many steps or something it took to get across from one side to the other, maybe? You remember any of that?
Approximately maybe 3 or 4. I mean, the right of way was probably 60 feet.
Okay.
So, I mean, I hear people say, well, I saw a Bigfoot run across the road in 3 steps. Well, that's probably right, on 2 legs. On 4, when they're in quad mode, what I saw, it was moving all 4 digits of its body. And I am a team leader for Jevning Research North Cascades, and I've talked to Will a lot about this. And, Will says that they do go into quad mode. And I never knew that, never thought that. But this thing was in quad mode, and it was moving quick. And when I saw it, the thing that really stuck out was that it had its head up, and its head was looking up the entire time. It wasn't like a bear or maybe a coyote or something where, its head is more down when it ran. This thing, its head was up the entire time. It looked like a professional. I know this sounds weird, but it looked like a professional basketball player, like a 7-foot tall basketball player running on 4 legs, on all 4s across the road, and then getting up on 2 legs when it got to the other side. So, maybe it was something else. I don't know. I've never seen anything move that fast. I mean, it was like a split second. I was driving and it just, boom, it was across the road, gone. And I got a split second look at something on 4 legs, or running on all 4s with its head up. And the other thing is I told Will this, and we talked about this, when it ran, the gait that it had, that's what really stuck out to me. Even though it was moving really fast, the gait was very peculiar. It's something I've never seen before. And it looked like it was literally ready to like fall over when it was running, when it was across the road. Like, it looked like it was about to bite the dust. That's how it ran. And it was just so odd. And
that's interesting.
Yeah. And, I play it back in my head over and over again. And I'm like, that could have been a bear, but bears are hibernating right now. They are. And
yeah, even I mean, we know that bears, when they hibernate, they can still wake up, go out and forage, go back, but they're very slow moving the whole time, even when they do.
Right.
Very slow moving. I mean, nothing moving that fast.
Right. If a black bear was to do what I saw, it would have taken, a lot more time than what I saw. This thing moves so fast. That was really what caught my eye. I was like, oh my God, like that was.
Well, and it had to be an excessively big black bear.
Yeah.
And they don't get that big.
And they don't get up on 2 legs when the other side of the road.
No. That's probably the real kind of got you moment, like, whoa, it stood up.
Yeah. Yep. And that was it. I mean, there's nothing terrifying about it. I wasn't chased or any of that. It's just, that's thought. I saw it clear as day, and that's what happened. So, the other encounter I've had multiple encounters, and I could bore you all night with them.
Actually, we're going to have you, Thorfinn, here on and off every few weeks or so, just to share more encounters as we go along, and also your knowledge base of Bigfoot. I'm actually going to start taking questions from people and maybe running them by you every few weeks or so, and have kind of like a little sit down discussion about them.
Well, I think I talked to you about this, Dave. I'm not really big into the Bigfoot community. I work for Will, and I really respect Will. He's very knowledgeable, and he's my friend. Yep. And today he's my friend, and that's why I've stuck with him. But
me too.
Yeah. I'm not really a big into the Bigfoot community that much. I've
Mm,
told Will pretty much that I'm, I don't want my name out there. I basically work as a scout for him. If I see something or hear something or I get a
yeah.
report, I'll let him know. Um, anyway, so working in the forest as a forester, a lot of people, and I just want to throw this out there because 9 out of 10 people really don't know what a forester is and what they do. 9 out of 10 people, when I tell them I'm a forester, they say, "Oh, you're a park ranger." No. Park ranger, that's a totally different profession. Foresters go out into the woods. They're off trails, they're off roads, they're in the bush, and they do a majority of different things. A lot of it evolves around timber harvest, or planting trees and things like that. A lot of it involves fighting forest fires. Forestry is like engineering. There's a lot of different facets in forestry. And my job is just one of them. But it does require, my job does require that, I'm out in on the west side of the Cascade Mountain Range in Washington State, northern Washington State, off the trails, off the roads, in the thick, mountainous, rainy, rainforest.
Mhm.
And when you spend the amount of time that I've spent, to be honest, we graduated college in 2008, and I've been doing this ever since. And I've seen enough evidence that shows me that these things are there, they exist. And I've talked to other foresters that I work with and other foresters that I've met and wildlife biologists that have had encounters with these things. So they're out there. I don't even question it. But anyway, this other encounter I had was probably the most disturbing. And it's really nothing like a lot of the ones that you have on your show. It's just something that I experienced as a forester that really
Mm.
frightened me. It really frightened me, actually. I was working in an area where I had been working there for years. It was an area that I was used to working. Surprisingly, it was a mountain. But if you're from the Pacific Northwest, you know the difference between a hill and a mountain. A mountain is like Mount Hood, and a hill could be 4,000 feet, but it's really not considered a mountain.
Mm.
This was a hill, and this hill consisted of industrial timberland, and there was gates to get into this place, and I was the only one with a key to the gate, and nobody else had a key to the gate, and this hill, though, the interesting thing is that it was surrounded by people on the bottom of it. There were houses on the bottom of it. There was one area where I had the encounter, actually, where there was a creek system that fed into a river, and they both have fish and salmon, and they all drain into Puget Sound. And there was really only one access point up into this hill, where a Sasquatch could get to without being detected, because there was people all around it. And that's what really surprised me about this entire encounter. It was fairly, the best way to describe it is urban interface, urban interface, I guess is the best way to call it. You're going from, wilderness to urban interface really quickly.
Mhm.
Anyway, so I had been working in this area for years. And I was doing a pretty routine thing where I had to spend about a half hour hiking from my work truck down into a very steep gorge canyon area, and then climb up the other side to get to this flat area where I was doing some forestry work. And I had been in there over and over. It was very thick. It was so thick that I had to use a machete to create an insertion point to get to where I was working. And the weird thing is the years that I had worked there, every time I took this path that I had made myself, I always got this weird feeling like this isn't right, like something's there, or something's watching me, because it was so thick. Like, it's so thick that you really can't see
Mhm.
maybe 10 feet, maybe 10 feet. Like, and I don't like that. I don't, I'm not,
Me either, man. I know what you're talking about. I know that thickness here. Yeah.
because it's so thick that a cougar could be standing 5 feet away from it, and you can see it. And I always just got that weird feeling every time I went in there. But I got used to it. Anyway, one day, it was a random day, and it's weird because I thought I had a pattern of these things living here as long as I have working here. I thought I had a pattern where, you know, they come down into the lowlands in the wintertime, because I had found a lot of tracks in this area in the wintertime, and you don't see much movement of these things in the summer around here. And this happened to be in the late spring in an area that was surrounded by houses on this hill I was working on. And I had this encounter, and the timing was even off. Like, I thought, you know, these things come out at night. You know, they're around in the wintertime, they come out at night. And my encounter just completely destroyed that entire theory that I had. Just like the road crossing. I was moving through this area, and I had to cross this huge drainage, like a big gorge, and at the bottom of it was a big stream. And the stream was a fish-bearing stream. It would, you know, it had salmon that would spawn in it every year, and it was part of our job to protect that stream from any kind of logging operations. And but it was a big canyon, and I dropped down in there. And another thing is that this entire area had more deer than anywhere I've ever seen in this area where, you know, there's deer around here, but this area has a lot of deer because nobody goes there. Nobody hunts it. Because unless you have a key to the gate or you're willing to walk a couple miles, you're not going to get in there to hunt. So there's a lot of deer, there's a lot of salmon, there's a lot of berries, and it's just a prime place for, you know, a primate or a Bigfoot or whatever to live there, or to hang there, I guess. So anyway, I had to crawl down this really steep gorge to get to this stream, this fish-bearing stream, and then climb up the other side, and then start making my way to this flat to start doing some field work that I had to do. It was routine. And as I'm doing that, I heard a vocalization of something that I've never heard it before. I'm not going to say like everybody else in the Bigfoot community that I've heard a bear, I've heard a cougar, I know what this sounds like, I know what that sounds like, I'm a master hunter and all that crap. This was not normal.
You're a forester. I'm sure you've heard quite a bit.
This was very scary. What I heard was very scary. I mean, I can try and replicate it, but it wouldn't do it justice. It sounded like a howl, but it sounded like almost like a human, but it was so loud that it echoed through that canyon. And when I heard it, I thought it was a female. Like, it sounded female for some reason, although I don't know if it was or not. Mm-hmm. But whatever it was frightened me to the point where I literally like hit the deck in the brush and hid, and I got as close to the ground as I could and hid for about 20 minutes because I was like, that is not what I think it is. Like, I know about these creatures. I've seen their tracks. I've seen one. I know they exist, but they can't be up where I'm at. There's people around the bottom. I'm the only one with the key to the gate. There's no way that's what that was, but that's probably what that was. And it just frightened me. And it's hard because my mind was not, you know, doing Bigfoot research for Will Jevning. My mind was, I got to get this job done because I got a job to do. I get paid to do this job. And so after about 20 minutes, I just, you know, I got my wits together and I went back to work. Now, one thing I was doing that most Bigfooters will, you know, find a pattern with is that I was putting these tags on these trees, basically these paper signs that say, you know, you can't log anywhere farther past this point. It's to protect that stream. And I had a staple hammer. It was a big industrial staple hammer, and you have to bang it on the tree. Mm-hmm. And I'm banging tags on this tree over and over again. That was initially what set off this sound. But the sound came from where I had to cross, you know, about a quarter mile back. So when I first came into that area, whatever made that sound was there when I was there. And then I moved past it. I went to work. I was pounding trees, putting, you know, don't log past this area signs on these trees with a staple hammer. So it sounded like I was doing tree knocks, I think, you know. Mm-hmm. I hear
kind of attracting it.
Right. And so I heard the sound and I went back to work, whatever. And then I had to go back to my truck. And I knew that I had to go to the same area where I heard that sound to get back to my truck. There was really no other way to do it. at that point, I think I knew what was going on. I just didn't want to believe it. And I did have a secondary option, but it would have been through an area that was even thicker. And, you know, I've read Paulides' books, and I'm not interested in being Bigfoot bait or whatever. And I knew that if I went that way, you know, there was a perfect ambush place. And I was, you know, I'm a Marine combat veteran. I know ambush places are, and I'm not going to go through there. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go back the same way I came. And I did. And I went back, I crossed the creek, I climbed up this steep gorge area to get to my work truck. And I didn't see anything or hear anything. I was, you know, at that point I was kind of like, you know, maybe that was something that maybe that was just some weird animal I've never heard before. I just wasn't really thinking about Bigfoot at that point. And about halfway up this steep gorge I was hiking up, I heard something. It sounded like at the time I heard it, the only thing I could think in my head was two big rocks being smashed together. I mean, it was loud. I heard it one time, and it echoed through this canyon. And honey, I just spilled some fluids here. Sorry.
Oh.
But it echoed through this canyon, and at first I thought, well, you know, it could have been a rock that just came dislodged from this canyon because it was really steep. And I thought maybe it was just a rock that dislodged from this canyon and went down into the creek. But as I started to move farther up the canyon, it did it again. And then it would do it again. And when I moved, it would do it. When I stopped, it would stop. And that's when the red light went off in my head or whatever, that this has something to do with that vocalization I heard.
Whatever it is can see you.
Yes. And the scary thing to me was that the thing that was whatever was making the sound was close. It had to have been within 100 to 150 feet at least.
Mm.
It wasn't that far away, and I was really looking. I thought in my head, I need to get out of here, but then it was like, I need to go check this out. So I would backtrack, a couple, 10 feet, and I would look, and I would look at the air. I heard this sound, and I didn't see anything, nothing. And I'm thinking, Bigfoot, they're huge, and you would see something, but I didn't. But it continued to, and I don't know if it was this thing banging rocks or if it had a big, stick or pole that was banging up against a tree. I don't know, but it was making a sound that was so loud. The only thing that could replicate it would be like a heavy piece of equipment. And there, and I thought, well, maybe somebody's up here messing with me, but I was the only one with the key to the gate. And the area where the sound was coming from was so thick with salmonberry and steep that nobody in their right mind would just happen to wander in there, hope somebody walks through there, and they're going to mess with them. And even if they did, they couldn't replicate that sound.
Yeah.
So I was very frightened at that point. And I remember Will Jevning told me, he's like, hey, man, if you get into a situation where you think you're in danger, don't freak out and start running. He's like, just casually leave the area. And that's what I did. So I casually left the area, and I prayed the 91st Psalm the entire way back to my work truck.
No doubt.
Last 100 feet, I was booking it, though, at that point. And then after that, I was so scared after that encounter that I sat in my work truck for about a week after, because I had to go back and finish that job. But for a week, I'd drive there, and I'd park my truck, and I would sit in my truck and read because I just couldn't get out of my truck and work. I was that frightened. So wow. That's the biggest encounter I've had. I've had other encounters where I've seen big blobs of hair moving in big canyons similar to where I saw, but I never got a good look at it. The only visual I've ever had is the one I told you in the beginning. So
yeah. Wow, that would be. I mean, I know what it's like to be up there in that thick, forest. I mean, you're just kind of walking. I mean, we used to do that here in this part of the Cascade Mountains. Me and my grandfathers, my mom and stuff, going around and, fishing, whatever, trying to get to that fishing spot, that fishing hole. And, you're having to walk up and down ravines and all this other stuff. And just to the right, to the left, I mean, you barely have shoulder room to walk. And there's just nothing but thick black forest. in the middle of the day or morning.
Well, and
And it can be creepy.
absolutely, it is creepy. And one thing I was thinking about before I got on with you, Dave, was that people that live here where I live, like I grew up in Hood River, and hunting there was relatively easy. There's a lot of game. It's easy to hunt there by Mount Hood.
Mm-hmm.
Where I live here, it's a different ecosystem. It's it's a rainforest. It's a Pacific Coast rainforest,
Mm-hmm.
and temperate rainforest, and it's very thick. And one thing I was thinking is that people that live here, when they hunt for deer, usually the people that live here, they travel to the east side of the Cascades to hunt deer. It's more high desert plateau, whatever you want to call it. It's easier to hunt there.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it's I've been hunting here for like 3 years now. Very difficult to hunt deer here because it's so thick. And yeah, these things hunt deer here, and they're very successful at it. So if they can hunt deer here easily, and then some yuppie from Seattle's walking on a trail or out in the woods, worshiping the trees and stuff, they're like easy prey for one of these things. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm constantly watching my six. I'm constantly watching my area when I'm working and I'm hunting. And it's like these things can be right in front of you, and you won't even know that they're there. And it's very frightening. So.
Yeah, no, we've got basically that same type of. We've got our Pacific Coast range right there of the Cascades, and then we've got right here on the other side of I-5, you got that kind of high desert plateau forest area that kind of meshes right into that wetness. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So let's see here. You had I remember once I was listening to you and you were talking a little bit about some of the natives was talking about cannibals.
Yes.
Yeah, could you? We've got some time here. Do you mind sharing that? I remember you said that was it your grandfather or somebody was doing wood carving or something like that, and they had mentioned he had carved a Bigfoot or something.
Yeah, sure. And you know what? If try to remind me later after the interview, I'll see if I can send you a picture of one of those carvings.
Oh, that would be awesome, man. Thank you.
So actually, I do. I'll talk to you about the cannibal thing with Grandpa, but it's actually the Native American here where I live that have the really interesting stories about that. But
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, my grandpa was a logger in Hood River, Oregon. He was on he was on the In Search of show with Leonard Nimoy. He was Jack Cochran, the logger that
Mm-hmm.
saw the Bigfoot and drew
Oh yeah.
who that is. And so yeah, he carved what he saw, and what he saw really looked similar to what I saw. But anyway, he was a carver, a wood carver as a hobby, and he made these carvings. He must have made like 3 or 4 of them, and I'll send you some of those pictures. And he put them in an art museum in Hood River, and a local native woman walked into the art shop or whatever there in downtown Hood River, and I think my grandfather was there at the time because he told me, he was like, she got upset when she saw him, and she was like, cannibal. These things are cannibals. These are not good. These are bad. These things are bad, and they're cannibals. And that was really all my grandpa told me, but it was very interesting. And this was a native woman that was into the traditional ways, the Columbia
Mm-hmm.
River, picking huckleberries, harvesting stuff, and she knew about them, and that's what she said. But the natives where I live up here in the north, in the North Cascades, I was out stripping cedar bark with them, and they
Mm-hmm.
used to make clothes and hats and stuff. And there was an elder woman that she was an elder in the Stillaguamish tribe, and she had lived in this area her whole life. And I just kindly asked her in a respectful way. I said, "Look, I've been working in these woods for many years now, and I have seen footprints of something that looks human. It has a mid-tarsal break in its tracks. It has an average of about a 5-foot stride, sometimes 6. And they whistle. They make weird howling sounds, and they're not bears. And then that just opened up a big box with her. She was like, yeah, that's a Sasquatch. What you're encountering is a Sasquatch. And she started telling me about the Sasquatch in this area. And he said that, most people in the Bigfoot community think that there's some type of primate. In my personal opinion, if we're intellectually honest, we really don't know what these are. But according to the native people here, they're not primates. They are humans. And she said that they are wild humans. They are ancient humans that were here before we came here, or actually before the natives came. And they have a language. And that's what they are. And she said that they're not friendly at all. And she gave me examples from people that she personally knew in her own tribe that lived here. One of the ones I found that was really, kind of disturbing was, I don't know if it was her brother or a friend, I don't remember, but they were living out here by Daring on a place called Sauk Prairie. And I think this was probably in the 70s. And it was very rural here at that time in the 70s. It was just logging, and that was about it. He had a house and a kind of like a farm area. And apparently these things were coming down off the mountain to harass his livestock and whatnot. And he was an Indian. He was a Stillaguamish. I believe he was a Stillaguamish tribal member. And she said that one night he got upset. He had too much to drink, and he started shooting his weapon into the darkness where these things were at. And the next morning, his infant son was gone out of the house. It was gone, and it was never found. Was she lying? I really doubt that. I've heard enough stories and evidence to suggest otherwise. That same tribe that has lived there since antiquity say that you don't take your kids out at night. These things are cannibals. They'll take kids, and so I believe that. But then she also said that they would spend days and days on the Stillaguamish River fishing in their cedar boats or canoes or whatever. And anytime they had a catch, they would stop and they would set aside salmon for the Sasquatch. And I don't think she used the name Sasquatch. I don't remember what name she used, because they have I think it's a Salish dialect. I can't be positive, but their name for it is different than Sasquatch.
It is, yeah, it is actually. I think between all the native tribes up through, from Northern California up through British Columbia and all that, there's something like 35, 40 different names of this thing. Yeah.
Well, and she said that one thing that really stuck out with what she had told me was that based on that story I just told you was she's like, don't mess with these things because they are very vindictive. Will Jebnian says this, they're very vindictive. They are all about payback. If you kill one of them or shoot at one of them, and these things move in groups of 4 to 6, at least in my experience, they're going to come after you. So anyway, that's that. So I can talk to you about the film if you want, or we can talk about it another time.
Let's talk a little bit about the film. We've got about another 10, 15 minutes here, so let's go ahead and do that.
Okay. So have you seen? I don't think you've seen it yet. It's kind of not necessarily secretive, but I sent it to Will. Basically, it's footage of 6 to 7 Sasquatches. I believe it's 6 from my count. That comes from near Mount Hood, Oregon, where I grew up, and the footage is mid-90s. I believe it's like 1995 or 96. VHS camcorder footage.
Tearing up the bear?
Well, it's not tearing up a bear, but it has a dead bear on the ground, and there's one alpha male laying over the top of it, like straddling it. It's very weird. My dad told me about this footage. His buddy was up looking for mushrooms. He was either scouting for deer or looking for mushrooms. I don't remember. I think he was looking for mushrooms. And he was not a Bigfoot researcher. He wasn't into Bigfoot at all. And the video basically shows, it starts out with like 2 deer, and you can hear the forest sounds and the birds chirping, and you see 2 deer, and they're frozen, and they're looking like straight ahead. And one of them's like stomping its leg, because they'll do that when they get scared.
Yeah.
you see that, and then the video pans to the left if you're watching it, and you see. Well, to be honest with you, when I first watched it, I called my dad back and I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, this is just a bunch of. There's nothing here. You know, what do you, you know, this is like blob squatch crap. You know, and everything's a blob squatch." Well, then I started looking at it over and over and over again, and I saw I was able to start breaking down and seeing these things. I did, you know, I wasn't trying to be biased and like be like, oh, I want to see a Bigfoot. I
Yeah.
saw, and I sent you a picture. I sent a picture to Will, a still frame, and Will was like, yeah, that's legit. But you only see 2 out of the 6 really clear. You can see a really good facial shot, probably at like 50 feet of one of these things hiding behind a tree. You see its face. It looks like a Neanderthal. It's got red hair, like cinnamon red hair. And then most of the film focuses on there's like a dead bear that and there's like, I don't know if it's an alpha male, that was my guess, but there's a big squatch like laying on top of this dead bear, and really can't make out anything other than the bear's head and a very massive left leg of a squatch. And you could call it something else, but when you see the other Sasquatches in the video, you know that's what it is. And he spent most of the time filming this on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the video pans to the right, and you see what looks like 2 juveniles that are sitting, like it looks like they're sitting on a log or something, and they're next to each other, and they're just watching that activity going on by the bear. And then the video pans even farther to the right, and you see a Sasquatch like sitting down on the ground on its butt with its legs stretched out, and it's got a club that's leaning up against its right shoulder. It looks like a hockey stick. And yeah, and it's looking to its left, and it doesn't move. Like none of these things move. None of them move. You see the deer move, but none of these things move. And the last Sasquatch you see in the film is the one that I hit pause play, and I finally was able to see the face on this thing. And you see a face, you see a very elongated skull. You know, people say these things look like, you know, somebody's wearing a hoodie, you know, at night. That's what it looked like. But the hair was red. You see the face clear as day. And I've never seen anything like this. I've seen Patterson Gimlin. I've seen a lot of stuff on YouTube. Most of it's fake. This is legit. And you really get a good look at the face on this thing. And I don't know what it is, Dave. I don't know if it's an ape or
You know, I'm with you. You know, it's like the best guess we have out here is some sort of primate. I mean, that's the best guess we have, but that's just a guess. Like you said, some people guess it's that. Some people guess it's some human, but it's all just a guess until one day we get that evidence we need. So,
well, we're intellectually honest. We really are. I think that's a good guess. I don't know though. I don't know.
I mean, like you said, to be intellectually honest, it's like you're not really sure. What you do know is that it's real. When me and my mom found, and everybody at the PacWest Bigfoot's been asking me to kind of regale my encounters within, and mine, one of them was an encounter. The other one was just evidence, was footprints. But this was in a 20-year span. 20 years later, about 3 miles away. So, you know, it was kind of interesting. But to see footprints like that in the snow in the middle of nowhere, what are the odds?
Are you talking about the Christmas tree?
Yeah. It was just middle of nowhere, man. What's that?
Did you follow?
What they did was, just to let you know, is you have, when you pull in to this like little open area where trucks would do like turnarounds or park and drop trailers off, whatever they do. Back then when they had the logging going on, the logging hadn't happened there for like 20 years. This thing was just, you know, there's nothing going on here. you cross this little tiny old concrete bridge with a little creek under it, and there's another big main creek down here called Elderberry Creek, and you have this little parking area over to the left, and then to the right, wrapping up around this big, huge, like you said, those mountains, but they're really kind of like hills, like 2,000-foot hill, and it just kind of wraps up around that and keeps going up. But my brother and sister, my dad were over here, parked the car, got out, looked over here. Me and my mom decided to walk up the road. We walked up the road and never noticed them at first because we were on the left-hand side. But when we moved over to the right-hand side and started looking along the thing, my mom looks down. And we're up towards, about good, 70 yards, 50, 70 yards, whatever, up the road. And she's looking down at something, and I'm like, and she starts walking, looking, and I'm like, what are you looking at? I'm like 13 years old. I'm cocky. And there they were. I mean, plain as day. These things had to be at least 16 inches long, man. At least. I know I'm guesstimating, but I'm telling you, it's a pretty good gosh darn guess. And they were right in front of each other, and they came out from the side of that old road, from the thick, like you said, that thick black forest, came out of there, curved down a little bit, but although these footprints stayed, right off the side of the road, down to the creek, and from the creek, it shot straight back up into the woods. Well, not straight, but kind of at an angle back into the dark woods. And I mean, that was it. But the thing is that I was 13 and I am a short guy. I'm like 5'7.5". I'm, any shorter and I'd get a disability check. But here's the deal. I'd had to do the splits to get to these things, just to get to my foot from putting my foot in one and getting to the heel of the other, just my toes on the heel. I'd have to do the splits. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty good distance. And I mean splits like I was going to get cold because my pants were going to get wet. So it was pretty interesting, to say the least. Go ahead.
Were the tracks, were the tracks in a straight line?
Yeah. Well, when they came out, I mean, every time you could see that they just went in, they were right in front of the other. You know what I mean? Boom, 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 boom. So, you know what I'm saying? Instead of like side to side, kind of, people have this kind of, we walk like this. You know what I mean?
Pigeon toed.
Yeah. This was
Baker now.
Yeah. So, and back then, I mean, did people really talk about that? Not really so much. I don't think they talked about the gait of the thing and how it would walk as much. You know what I mean? Back then. And this was like 1980, 1985, mm-hmm. So even back then it was still, Bigfoot was still kind of small talk, through, certain very small communities. It wasn't as kind of big as it is today. So, but William did mention that video to me, and he was going to share that with me eventually as soon as he went through it a whole lot. So I was kind of waiting around. I was like, oh man, I can't wait to see that. It's going to be awesome.
Well, you know what do is maybe send you a copy. I have a copy. I had one copy that I got from my dad in Oregon, and then he sent it to me, and I immediately sent it to Will. When Will got it, for some reason he couldn't play it. I don't know what device he had, but he couldn't play it. So he was like, well, whatever, I'm going to send it off to this medical student that does research for me and clean it up and stuff. Mm-hmm. And still waiting to hear back from him. But Will hasn't seen it. The only thing Will's seen is that still frame that I took with my iPhone and sent to him. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no. I'd love to get a copy of that. Actually, I got a buddy here in town who can actually make, can actually clean it up and put that on DVD for you too. So.
Yeah, I'll do that because, I told Will, I was like, whatever the case, in my opinion, this is a really fantastic film. And I want to keep it in the Jevning research group because you know how integrity works with the Bigfoot. It's just,
Yeah. I mean, even being here, it's like I told people with PacWest Bigfoot here, the interviews are the interviews, and I really love doing them. You know, the encounter stories that I get from people here and there, and kind of build that backstory with them and everything else. I already told people I'm not here to authenticate these things.
yeah.
It's really just to, so they can share their encounter stories, and so that we can hear them. That's really it. Nothing more, nothing less. The interviews, this is where I wanted to really dive into the reality of this, to really get behind that part of the authentication of this thing. And so this is where all the authentic stuff happens. Whereas that over there is just people sharing their stories. That's what I'm doing there. Man, thank you. Like I said before, having you back here just to kind of share some more of your encounters, things that you have experienced and whatnot. I want to bring you back here every few weeks until we've kind of got them all shared out, and that would be so awesome. I know that when I talked a little bit about you and introduced some stuff like last week in a video, letting people know that you'd be here, they were like really excited. They were like, oh, so yeah, it's pretty cool. But thanks for being on here, Thorfinn, man. I so appreciate you being here and getting to know you and everything else through William and everything else. Has just been awesome. I like you. I love this subject. I do want you to kind of leave us with something though. There's a lot of us out here who do like to go out there and get into the bush and do a little research and do a little thing, stuff like that. How smart do you think that is? Personally.
Well, to be honest with you, I told Will this, and Will gets this. I was like, dude, I'm not going to go out on a research expedition because you're not going to see anything. I mean, some people do, but 9 out of 10 times you're not. And I've been on expeditions, and 9 out of 10 people, and I'm not trying to be an ass, but like 9 out of 10 people that say that they're woodsmen or this and that, they don't know how to read sign in the woods. They don't know what proper clothes to wear in a rainforest when it gets cold. They don't know how to start a
Mm-hmm.
fire in the rain, and they're clueless to the woods, but they say they're experts. And that is a very dangerous mindset to have if you're going to go out especially in the Northwest, and try and look for these things. Most of the encounters I've had, I wasn't looking for them. I wasn't thinking about them. It just happened.
Yep.
And it happens at the time when you least expect it, like the time of day, the time of month, even the hour of the day. It happens when you least expect it. And like I said earlier, these things can be standing literally 5-10 feet in front of you, and you can't see them. You can't see them.
No, you can't. You can't see jack diddly squat here. You just in the middle of the day you couldn't see it. It's just you can't.
If you want to do that, fine, because I know that there are Bigfoot researchers. There's a group up north here in Bellingham that got some really good audio, Sasquatch research like that. They got fantastic audio. But, me personally, I would not go out in the woods by myself or camp by yourself. And if you're going to go out in the woods, I would have a group of people with you, but you have a less chance of seeing one, I think. But at the day, this is just my personal opinion, you should be armed. Either with bear spray. Will talks about these guns that you can shoot that makes like a sound that scares off birds or something. That's a good idea. But I do not recommend going out in the woods without some type of personal protection. And I would not recommend going out alone. So
I always tell people that never go out alone. Don't go out alone. Always take, at least a couple extra, a couple people with you. There's always safety in groups. I don't care what the creature is. I don't, trust me, the pastor at my church, they were missionaries in Africa, and he was like, there was always a few guards of people, there's always a few people guarding the village we would live in who are armed with lions. Now the lions would usually stay away because there was people there, and they really didn't like people, but couldn't be trusted. So be armed anyways. So yeah.
They're very dangerous. And if you want to go out and try and confront one or, become one with it or whatever, that's fine. I don't recommend it. I really don't.
Yeah.
So
Cool. Right on. All right, man. So, yeah, I'll give you a shout back in a couple, 2, 3 weeks if you'd like to jump on here and share a few more of your encounters, if you don't mind. I'll let you know when if you'd like to do that. And for those of you guys that are listening in, thank you so much for just being a part of the PacWest Bigfoot experience here. Enjoying the encounter stories, enjoying talking to awesome individuals, informed individuals like Thorfinn here and others. So with that, thank you guys very much. God bless you. I will see you on the next interview and on the next encounter story on PacWest Bigfoot. Thorfinn, hold on. I'll be right with you. Anyways, from the beautiful Pacific Northwest, guys, God bless.